At 6 p.m, and I declare this agenda forum open. Welcome to all in the chambers and gallery and those watching online. I'd like to begin by stating that the City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of this region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters, their culture and community, as we pay our respects to their elders past, present and their descendants. Item 2 is the disclaimer. Agenda forums are specifically for agenda items which are to be considered by Council at the next ordinary Council meeting. Agenda forums are not a decision-making forum. They provide an opportunity for councillors to be equally informed and seek additional information on matters prior to the presentation of such matters at the next ordinary meeting of Council for formal consideration and decision. The terms and condition of entry into this meeting are posted at the entry to the public gallery. Members of the public are advised to read them prior to attending and abide by them. Attendance and apologies. Councillor Predovnik is requested and has been approved to attend electronically tonight. I note all other councillors are in attendance other than Councillor Catalano, who hopefully will be here shortly. And you'll notice that the CEO is absent tonight, and he sent an email out a short time ago explaining why. And Ms Pickering will be chairing tonight, and that blank expression, Councillor Parry, he's attending his daughter's graduation from university. Item 4, declarations of financial proximity interest or interest affecting impartiality. I ask, are there any councillors? Being none, item 5, petitions. There have been nil presented. I'll ask again, are there any petitions to be presented? Being no petitions, we'll move on to item 6, reports and notices of motion. There were nil. 6.1, additional information from officers. There's nil. Item 6.2, deputations. In accordance with the current procedures for public participation at agenda forums, all requests for in-person deputations were required by 6 p.m. Tuesday the 5th of September 2023, being yesterday, and all written deputations received by 3 p.m. Tuesday the 5th were circulated with the preliminary agenda this morning. There's one item we have a number of deputations for, and that's in Part B of the agenda on page 18. It's item 4.1, the Responsible Authority Report, adaptive reuse of the old theatre building, formerly the Vaudeville Theatre, for expansion of the Guildford Hotel Tavern on James Street, Guildford. We have 3 in-person deputations. Ms Claire Scanlon, on behalf of the Guildford Association, has emailed me a short time ago. She's unwell and is unable to attend.
Question at this point, Mr Mayor. Would it be possible for someone else such as yourself to read out Ms Scanlon's deputation?
As long as it's not one of the other persons present. If someone wants to read out that deputation, they can. I've sent it to all councillors with an advice note to read it before next week's council meeting and take it into consideration for determination. But if there's someone in the gallery that can read out that who's got the deputation on behalf, and I've got someone indicating, so that's fine. So if you please come to the podium. Have you got a copy of the deputation? Well, you can come to the podium and state your name. I believe what council is going to give you the deputation. You can read it out on behalf of Claire Scanlon.
Yeah, sorry, my name is Jackie Jones from Henley Brook. Just literally just walked in, so I just thought I'd just read it just on Claire's behalf. If someone can provide it to me, that'd be great.
Thank you, Jackie. You have 3 minutes, so off you go when you're ready.
Sorry, just catch my breath before I start. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and staff. This is from Claire Scanlon. Tonight I'm asking Council not to endorse the officer's recommendation for the application to JDAP for the following reasons. Number 1, traffic is already congested in Guildford. Number 2, road safety is already compromised in this area with over 100 traffic accidents reported in the past 5 years. Number 3, the parking area is full any day of the week, leading cars to park in residential streets and the school zone. And number 4, increased patronage will adversely impact upon amenity, safety, and flow of the surrounding areas. The revised figures, using only what is already approved for the Guildford Hotel, do not in any way allay our concerns about traffic. The Guildford Hotel does not and physically cannot hold functions for that many people, but with the vaudeville space at their disposal, they will hold larger functions, so there is no doubt this development will add to the existing traffic and parking issues. We are not satisfied that this adjustment in capacity changes anything. Thank you.
Thank you for that deputation. The next person to have an in-person deputation is Mr. Paul Gantos, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Paul. You'll have 3 minutes once you start speaking as well.
Thank you. Good evening, council members, mayor and others in attendance. My name is Paul Gantos and I'm the Managing Director of Urbi. I was engaged by the Guildford local community to undertake an independent review of traffic, parking and safety issues associated with the development. The proposed development is significantly lacking in car parking. There are only 24 vacant bays available during the busy Friday lunchtime peak period. There are only 67 bays available on Friday late afternoon and only 52 bays available on Sunday midday. Our independent estimate of parking demand based on the floor area of the development is around 80 bays during the busy Friday midday and Saturday evening peak trading periods. The parking surveys presented in the TIS show that there's not enough public parking at all times of the day. The TIS also shows development traffic using the Guildford Hotel crossover on Johnson Street. During my site visit, the Guildford Hotel car park was full and the overflow parking area was also quite full. There was a significant queue and congestion on Johnson Street blocking the Guildford Hotel driveway. There's zero capacity for the site car park to absorb the significant additional traffic of the proposed development. The traffic impact of the development is quite significant. The expected parking shortfall is too large to be realistically addressed by rideshare. There are no suitable pickup or drop-off facilities for rideshare, which can support a large portion of customers. Use of the rear site car park for rideshare will cause additional congestion within the already full car park, not to mention increased traffic at the crossover.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Sure. We checked the 5-year crash history in the vicinity of the site, and we were shocked to see there was over 150 crashes in the last 5 years. 16 of those crashes required medical treatment and 4 crashes required hospital treatment. There's 6 crashes on Johnson Street that were actually related to driveway use for the subject site, and that's actually quite significant, and it shows that there's a lot of congestion and safety problems at the crossover. We disagree with the concept that the proposed development will not change traffic or parking due to the number of patrons remaining the same. For best practice, we base our traffic and parking analysis on the additional floor area, and that's the way it should be done, independent of other variables. In summary, the development application fails to consider the significant impact on traffic, congestion, parking and road safety. Thank you for your time. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. And Councillor Howard.
Thank you for your deputation. You say you were engaged by the Guildford community to undertake this study. Can I ask whom or which community group commissioned you for this, please?
Yeah, there's a list of members, so there's residents and local business owners as well. I don't have the list on me, but it's something that maybe we could submit afterwards.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for that deputation. I was just wondering if we might be able to get a copy of that traffic report. Is that able to be given to councillors, or can I have a copy of that report too?
Yeah, we could definitely arrange for that. I was hoping that it would have already been sent before today's meeting. I'd have to check with like my client and the town planner, but I think it's definitely valuable to circulate. We put a lot of time into preparing the report.
That'd be great, thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Oh yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my question really relates to the fact that the number of patrons, 729, is not going to increase. So can you elaborate on why you think there'll be more traffic if the maximum number of patrons does not increase?
First of all, there's a little inconsistency with the development application and the supporting reports. So the development application's traffic report predicts that there'll be an increase in traffic itself. So even using their TIS, it shows there's extra traffic, and they've distributed it to the driveway where there's no capacity because the car park's full. And we base it on floor area because that's an independent assessment, and that's what I advise my clients to do. I think for a robust assessment, we don't know what can happen in the future. The way a facility operates can change, ownership can change, management or other factors can be different. So we be independent, we look at what's the proposed floor area, and based on that, what can it generate? That's the way to do a robust independent assessment.
Just a follow-up question. What percentage increase in traffic would you estimate?
I don't have the percentage on me, but my estimate was an extra 77 trips in the peak hour. That was two-way trips.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bowman, you were next.
Yeah, thank you. So just let me get it right. So you're saying to us if there was a pub that was 1,000 square metres or 2,000 square metres, but both were limited to, say, 400 patrons, that you are saying that there's more traffic for the bigger one than the smaller one. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
What I'm saying is when we do traffic assessments, we can't base it on limiting patrons. We base it on the floor area because it could potentially change ownership or be reused in the future. So that's the way we would do a robust assessment. If there's a patron cap, that's fine. The other issue with the patron caps is, are they being monitored and enforced? So that's
probably a complete different question. So with your traffic impacts that you do, yes, we all get told by planning that it's usually based on the area. However, you don't take in consideration if there's a cap placed on the limit. So if that had been a shop that's 1,000 square metres and is limited, or a restaurant that's limited to only 50 customers, as opposed to being a shop which was 500 square metres limited to 50, you don't take that into consideration. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes or no, it's fine.
Well, I would say no. 90% of the time, no.
So the next question is, you talk about their traffic report, and look, I don't disagree with a lot of your comments as well, but you talk about their traffic report, and yes, it does indicate there's going to be more traffic, but that was based when the numbers were going to be higher. So therefore, if the numbers are lower, restricted, that traffic report is then somewhat outdated. Would that be correct?
It can be outdated, but if they want to make that argument in a technical sense, they would have to demonstrate that the existing hotel is already using the full capacity. So if there's only 300 patrons in the hotel, even though there's a cap of 700, you could still potentially double the parking demand if you're going to the full cap. We don't know how many, there's no association now of the current parking demand in the area versus how many patrons are in the hotel. So there could be 300 patrons now, and if there's 600, it would double the parking demand. So it's hard to justify based on the patron cap, because we don't know if that cap's been reached inside the hotel. That data wasn't evident in the transport assessment.
But you would agree that the cap now is 729, and if this application goes through, it'll still be 729. That we agree with that.
I'm not sure I follow the question. Sorry.
Don't worry. Mr. Mayor, I've got questions of staff after the deputation.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just another quick couple of questions. I'm just interested in how many people were involved during the study for those periods of time that you described, the evening, the weekends and the Sunday afternoon.
Okay. Well, I cited two of those figures from the Transcore TIS, which was prepared for the development application. And the Friday midday was from a parking survey that I had completed. So I think that's data from two sources.
So was there anyone there physically doing the count on those, the afternoon to evening during the weekday, and then the Friday night, and then the Saturday period and the Sunday afternoon?
I would say so. So the reason I did a survey for Friday midday is because that time period wasn't surveyed. So the TIS that was submitted with the DA, they had surveyed Friday evening and the weekend, but they hadn't done a survey on Friday midday. And that's why I did my own survey. I only did it at that time because that time wasn't included in the previous surveys that were done. And at that time, there was only 24 bays available at lunchtime in that whole area.
I'm just interested in the person that was there, obviously looking and observing. What happened with Uber and taxi drop-offs? If those bays were already full, were there any numbers involved in terms of taxis and Uber drop-offs that you could distinguish between those that parked and those that came after, and buses?
I did the survey for Friday midday, and I didn't observe much taxi and Uber at that time. I can't comment on the evening and weekend, so I'm not sure. I didn't do those surveys myself, but I know in the traffic report that information wasn't available.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Henderson, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. The question is around the crashes, the 150 odd crashes and 16 needing medical attention. Did those statistics come from broad uptake in the area, or directly as a result of that business or that area?
Sorry, could you repeat the last part of that question?
So I want to know about whether or not these 150 crashes that you cite in 5 years, whether or not they were all directly related to this application or this place. Because obviously stats are generally a bit broad.
Yeah, that's correct. It includes everything. So it'll be the traffic volumes on the surrounding roads, what type of intersections are provided. So traffic signals, for example, they tend to produce a lot of rear-end crashes, which is quite common at traffic lights. So there's a congestion in the locality, but I think there's a bit of a concern when I looked at the crashes mapped graphically. The crashes spread out along James Street, and then they spread down Stephen Street and Ethel Street. And those streets shouldn't have that many crashes, particularly the side streets that don't carry a lot of traffic. It just looks like people are wandering around looking for a parking spot, and when people are looking for an on-street parking spot, they get distracted. They might have less attention on their driving because they're looking for a vacant space. So that can actually exacerbate crashes. So when you have limited parking, even if you're using parking further away for the PTA car park, people in nature, they'll first try to get a car park close to where they're going, and they'll drive around. If they can't find one, they'll give up and maybe drive further away. So it's that activity and having limited parking options. It can exacerbate road safety issues.
Okay, I just wanted to make it clear then, that in my mind, obviously the same circumstance could occur as part of other businesses in the area. So I just want to get a feeling for whether or not the 150 were directly related to this or not. So from what you say, perhaps not.
I wouldn't say all 150. No, of course not. As I think it's just it's a contributor, and when we prepare traffic assessments, it should be something that's covered in terms of safety. Is the proposal going to have any impact on existing safety issues?
Thank you for your deputation and answering those questions. I now call to the podium Mr. Peter Marger from Urbanista Town Planning. And thank you, Peter. Once again, you'll have 3 minutes once you start talking.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just before I start, I understood that I had 5 minutes as per your notes. So I prepared a presentation that goes for 5 minutes. The stuff that's online, the forms indicate that we've got 5 minutes to speak tonight.
No, and if you rang up to book a spot, you should have been told it was 3 minutes. That changed a couple of months ago when we've adopted new...
You may want to change the information online because it still points to 5 minutes. And I've prepared a presentation that now I have to cut down on half of it. So
Mr. Mayor, we've only got three.
Are you moving that way,
deputation.
Councillor Johnson? Because I
Yes.
can't break procedures, but if majority of councillors...
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm proposing 5 minutes.
Thank you. A seconder, Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone against? Then you can have your 5 minutes.
Much appreciated.
Just a note to staff, we'll make sure that the website is updated. If it's saying 5 minutes, we need to have it back to 3, as recently adopted. Thank you.
Thank
you have
you.
5 minutes. I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Peter Merger. I'm a Director at Urbanista Town Planning. I'm here representing the Guildford small business community to speak against the recommendation for approval. The focus of my objection to the application is the significant current and future impacts imposed on the local community by the development and its proposed extension, specifically in relation to parking, traffic and amenity. Specifically, the application proposes an extension to the Guildford Hotel into the Vaudeville Theatre at significant cost to the proponent, but with no increase to patronage, allegedly. This is simply unbelievable. Why would the proponent invest such a significant cost for no commercial return? Parking on the site is currently inadequate. There is an existing dire shortfall of parking on the site available for the Guildford Hotel, with 431 bays required for the hotel and only 80 bays approximately provided. Add to this a further shortfall of 192 parking bays, and that is 543 bays that are needed for this development to operate. Johnson Street and James Street are extremely busy roads with on-street parking at a premium. Is it fair for the local residents and business owners to have to deal with one business operating with a shortfall of 543 bays? And what sort of precedent does this establish in the area and the City of Swan with respect to future development applications? Furthermore, there is an alarming lack of information and detail provided in the officer report, which has made it difficult to provide a full and accurate assessment of the proposal and brings into question the transparency of the process. For instance, why has no car parking plan been provided and why are there no attachments available in the council agenda? With respect to the officer report, there are no attachments provided and the plans, other than a set of plans from March, which is 6 months ago. Please note that this application was lodged in May, so the plans that are prepared 2 months ahead of the lodgement were not revised or amended, despite the substantial community concerns raised in relation to the proposal. This gives the impression that the concerns of the community have been ignored and brushed to the side, with the decision to recommend approval decided well before the community consultation process has taken place. These plans do not even include a car parking plan, and I have no idea how the officer was able to conduct a full and proper assessment of parking without this crucial information. The only plan presented of the car park is an area which shows half the car park unconstructed. It begs the question of what sort of an assessment has taken place if there's not even been a car parking plan provided with the application. Questions such as how many total parking bays are provided within the parking lot cannot be answered because there is no plan to indicate that. With the extension of the Vaudeville Theatre, providing more toilets, cool rooms and freezers, this all points to an expansion in business operations, more patrons to the site, more loading bays that are required, and ACOD bays as well. Yet there is no updated plan showing the arrangement. And if one was to be provided, it will actually show less bays than what was approved for the Guildford Hotel. The other consultants' reports, such as the proponent's planning report, heritage report, applicants' response to further information, transport impact statement, again, are not available on the agenda. Granted, some of these reports were available during the community consultation process, but that is insufficient. We don't know if these plans have been updated, amended, or therefore properly scrutinised. For instance, the Transcore traffic report, which was advertised to the public, is actually a draft document. If you look at the document itself, it's a draft document, so it's not even a fully completed document. It's crucial that these reports be made to the public, so there's full transparency for the community, and so that council can make a fully informed decision on the proposal. The proposal includes no additional parking bays and reduces the total number of bays that are required by removing existing parking from the theatre site. With approximately only 80 bays available, this demonstrates a significant parking shortfall of approximately 460 bays for the business, 540 bays, sorry, for the business to operate. The stress on the businesses and residents in the area from the generation of additional traffic and lack of parking has not been contemplated.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
With respect to the comment in the officer report about the rideshare, it states that the suggestion here is that patrons of the facility can be expected to travel to and from the site making use of rideshare as opposed to driving themselves, but this is not substantiated and no further information is provided in relation to that. I'll finish my presentation by turning to the attention of the argument presented by the proponent that the planning framework contemplates a reduction in parking numbers under Clause 12 of the Planning and Development Regulations through the preservation of the theatre heritage building. This is simply not the case and is akin to asking council to approve a 10-storey development on the site because works are being proposed to improve the heritage building. I doubt council would support the nexus of that argument, and it is why it should not support the parking shortfall here. Furthermore, the Vaudeville Theatre site is not being enhanced to be used for its historical purpose, rather is to provide another drinking hole in the area and is purely for commercial purposes for the Guildford Hotel. So in conclusion, I ask the council to reject the officer recommendation on the basis that it will have a serious adverse effect on the local community by way of parking, traffic and amenity. Moreover, the process lacks transparency, a proper and thorough assessment of the application is not taking place, adequate information is missing, and plans are missing, which makes it difficult to accurately evaluate the development and form a decision in accordance with all the improper planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman, you were first with a question.
Thank you. You mentioned the financial outcome for this business. Why would they do it? Would you agree that's not a planning consideration?
No, it's just a common sense argument.
Okay, so it's not planning. The approved parking numbers and the approved patrons for when the Guildford Hotel was approved, whether you like it or not, is the same as this one, and there's no additional patrons being recommended. So why would a updated parking plan be provided, and you're a town planner, when there is no changes to the numbers?
It's not even that there's an updated parking plan. There was none actually provided in the development plan. So if you look through the plans, you'll see flashy photos of the theatre site being redeveloped, a lot of floor plans, but there's not actually a parking plan showing the number of bays, showing the bays designed in accordance with AS 290.1, which is Australian standards, circulation of the car parking area, loading bays, ACROD bays, all these things that are crucial to the assessment of an application. There's simply not been a plan provided. So however many bays were provided as part of the Guildford Hotel development, I'm sure that plan would have been provided, and there's a number of parking bays there. There would have been a condition also imposed on that development for the car park to be upgraded, no doubt. That hasn't occurred. Half the car park is still unconstructed. Lines have not been marked. So it becomes a complete mess actually going through that area. But moreover, there's not been a plan provided. So, what I'm suggesting is that as part of this redevelopment, there'd be a need to improve on that plan, whatever that plan might have been in terms of the numbers, providing more ACROD bays, more loading bays because you've got more freezers and backer room areas and all that sort of stuff. We simply don't have that plan, so we don't know the numbers. But the number of parking bays that would have been approved with the Guildford Hotel are now less. They'd have to be less if you include those things such as complying with today's standards, providing more loading bays and Acrod bays and so on and so forth. And especially if you want to provide bays for rideshare, for instance, none of that's been contemplated. So the assessment just seems to just skip over all of that, skirts around it, and ignores it.
Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence, can I ask the staff a question just related to the parking?
Well, I'll
now?
just ask if there's any more councillors who've got a question to this, of Mr Madra, and then we'll go to staff questions. Councillor Howlett?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I might have missed it, but can I ask who commissioned your report, or was this done voluntarily?
Same as Paul, it was the local community, the Guildford. No, we've got a list of, we're happy to provide that list to you after the meeting. So we've got a list of both residents and local business owners.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, councillors? Then I thank you for your deputation answering those questions.
Thank you. Appreciate the 5 minutes. Thank you.
We've got one more. Do you want to ask your questions now, Councillor Bowman, or after the next deputation?
With your indulgence, Mr. Mayor, it's just regarding the parking.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the staff, the deputation talked about the previous approved parking plan, and also that some of the parking bays aren't constructed. Is the parking plan that was approved for Guildford Hotel being constructed as is? And the other half on the flashy photos, as the deputation just mentioned, is that parking or is that actually for something else?
Mr Russell, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In short, I can advise you that the provision of sealed line-marked parking bays at the Guildford Hotel car park is compliant with the approval. The area that is unsealed is area extra to the required parking that was stipulated under the Guildford Hotel approval. It is nonetheless a fact that that area is being used by car parking, and the report notes that there is perhaps some degree of unrationalised car parking occurring in the unconstructed line-marked area, but that doesn't render it non-compliant with the conditions for the Guildford Hotel in terms of the amount of sealed, drained and line-marked bays. It is compliant.
So, Mr. Mayor, just if I can get it right in non-planning terms, the parking that's there now, bitumised, is what was required. The bit of gravel area is going to be for something else, but in the meantime, people park there. Great. And Mr. Mayor, just another question regarding parking. When, through you to the staff, when parking was approved for the Guildford Hotel, has there been any changes to the requirements from then to now for things such as Acrod parking, Uber rides, taxi ranks, or anything else like that that was actually mentioned by the person making a deputation?
Really, Mr. Mayor, not at the instigation or request of the city, whether the proponent has done anything individually, but I might say the last time I was out there recently, I did not see any delineated Uber or rideshare parking bays. I did observe, to be fair, some non-compliant parking, but we've already alluded to that.
Councillor Howlett?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is for Mr Russell. On page 35, the last paragraph talks about when the city met with the applicants and the topic of the patrons was discussed, and with the applicant stating that the intent was to increase the capacity of the combined venues from 750 to 950. So that conversation was had, but it doesn't seem to have been formalised anywhere other than in that brief paragraph. So are we to believe the intent of the applicant is to, at some point, increase their patronage, understanding that the liquor licensing is for 750?
Mr Russell?
I'm going to try and be accurate and concise, Mr. Mayor. What the report demonstrates, and I'm going to perhaps level a degree of criticism to the proponent has been inconsistent over the course of interactions with the city as to how they've communicated their intentions for patron numbers, and the report takes pains to explain that for the benefit of the council and the community. The conclusion here is, and the salient point is this, at the 11th hour, and Mr Dawkins can affirm this, and you can ask him that yourselves if you wish, has affirmed that the client has reverted to a position that was originally communicated to by them to me in the original meeting that this redevelopment of the Vaudeville Theatre wasn't for the purpose of increasing the patron numbers at the Guildford Hotel. It was to provide alternative, fit-for-purpose space for clientele, an option of a different area of the licensed premises to occupy, i.e. no extra patron numbers. Over the course, as the report makes clear over those couple of pages under the heading of parking, that position has flip-flopped. Yes, at one point they did indicate that the intent was to go from 750 to 950. They've now reverted. If you're asking me, ultimately, is the longer term intent subsequent to this for the proponent to increase their numbers, you can take your bets on that. It might be likely. But I think what this report will demonstrate is that if they're looking at increasing the patron numbers, then we're back to drilling down on the adequacy of parking in the area, which you've now heard this evening. You've got members of the community, which is their want, to engage in independent assessment. The proponent's done one, and guess what? We did one as well. So you've got three things going on, and the councillors, you will be familiar that the issue of parking in Guildford has been subject of an extensive survey, the Guildford Access and Parking Strategy, and that's alluded to in this report. But certainly at this point, there is no increase in patron numbers beyond the 729, but whatever the council recommends to the JDAP and whatever the JDAP may see fit to determine, it doesn't preclude the proponent from applying for an extra 10, 15, 20, 200, whatever people. But it will go back then to examining, as everyone is well and truly aware as we must, the adequacy of parking in the location, taking into account all the factors of available parking, available off-site parking, and how people choose to access licensed premises in the 21st century with rideshare, trains, bikes, whatever.
Councillor Bowman.
Just another question following on from what the manager said. So if this was to get approved with 729, and let's say in 2 years' time they want to increase the numbers to 950, who approves that? Does that come back to council?
Through Mr Mayor, it could come to council, but the applicant might elect for it to go to the JDAP. But at the moment, given all of this, any report that we were to do on that under the standing delegation would come back to the council in any event, unless that changes in a couple of years' time.
Thank you. I'll now ask the final deputation, Mr Tim Dawkins from Urbis, to come to the podium. Thank you, Tim. I'll state that you've got 3 minutes, but if you're going to be longer than that, someone may move a different thing. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name is Tim Dawkins. I'm a director at Urbis, and we're the applicants today for the redevelopment of the Guildford Hotel. We saw this as a site repair project. This is a really significant and important heritage building that's been underutilised for a long time and has a couple of car parking bays, 3 car parking bays out the front, and is contributing nothing to the street. What this is doing is increasing the activation to the street, bringing enlivenment to the street, and creating a better interface to the heritage building. As Phil Russell said, this is an opportunity to change the way that the pub is precinct. The experience you can have when you're there is different. So it's at the moment it's very busy. It has a capacity of 729 people, and people can be on top of each other. So this is about spreading out and allowing for different people to come. We're putting in a children's playground, and we're having different areas where people can do different things and integrate different ways. All that's been said tonight is correct. Councillor Bowman, you're correct with the capacity, but what isn't correct is there is no capacity on the limit of the size of the pub at the moment as far as the City of Swan's concerned. It's a liquor licensing capacity. There's no condition saying 729 people can come to the hotel. That's based upon the number of toilets that are available. If we increase the number of toilets, we could make this pub a much bigger capacity venue, and it wouldn't necessarily have to come back to council at all. What we're volunteering here is to actually put a cap for the first time of 729 people to the venue, so it won't change it. In fact, it'll limit it in a way that isn't currently limited, potentially under liquor licensing controls. The state design review, your design review panel, the city's design review panel looked at this, and you would have read in the agenda how complimentary they were with the works that are happening and the quality of the repairs and what's happening to the site and how this new heritage building is being celebrated and bringing people into it. So we're not changing the number of people. There is an approved plan. We're not changing the stamp plans that show the line marking and all the other conspiracy theories that might be being put towards the application. The approval is the approval, and the car parking isn't changing. What we're doing is putting a new life to the building next door to it, and the car parking is exactly the same, attached to the same capacity that is currently used for this pub.
Yeah, 1 minute left, thank you.
That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Johnson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my question is the hotel's capacity in terms of people of the 729 allowable, is it currently fully utilised at any times of the week?
I don't know. It can't get any bigger. There's a sign on the door when you walk in, 729. There's a person with a clicker. I don't know what the numbers get to, but that's where it's at. If they wanted to make it more, it's based on the number of toilets.
But this kind of utilisation factor would tell us whether the 729 is being used, and if, say, at the moment it's only 50% used, and then we have a bigger building, and therefore we get a greater utilisation, that would increase the amount of traffic, and that would sort of explain the source of the residents' concerns.
Potentially, but in the Guildford Society's submission, they said, because when we applied, we didn't volunteer a cap. We thought, well, why does it have to be limited? So we said, let's assume a higher number. And in their submission themselves, they said, this is already a pub that can have 729 people, and it's only going to get bigger and more impactful. So we listened to that submission, and we said, okay, fine, we can hear what you're saying, we can hear your concerns, let's keep the cap where it is and let's not increase that at all. And so that's when they've pivoted their argument to try and say, well, we don't like what's happening at the moment anyway. And that's what we've heard. A lot of it's been about the existing operations of the hotel, not the proposal.
So if there is a measuring device on the door, then would it be possible to get that utilisation of the hotel space, get that information to us before the council meeting so we can see whether there is likely to be an increase in patrons attending and therefore traffic?
I can ask the question. It's a licensing question. It's not a town planning question, so it's not the same. It comes past me.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Bowman.
I noticed in the report the operating hours of the extension is going to be 11 to 10 and 11 to 12. Are they the same as the current pub hours?
They're the hours in the liquor licensing.
Yeah.
So there's no limitation in the DA approval. All the licensing hours come from the liquor license.
Councillor Howlett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Tim. My question relates to the unsealed land at the back, lot 66. Is that owned by the applicant?
No, it's owned by the landowner and the applicant are different entities.
Okay.
So the applicant is the lessor, the operator of the Guildford Hotel. The landowner of the venue, both venues, and the car parking area behind is someone else. We can't use their land. That has an approval for a small supermarket and other things on it, which was granted over this land, and the car parking as is. So that's all in future plans. We can't control it. That's not part of the lease.
So yeah, because I noticed that there's a for sale sign, which I think pertains to that section of I think that lot's for sale basically. So I guess that's another question when we come forward to.
Potentially, yes. Yeah. So what my client, who is the applicant, has control over is the Guildford Hotel, the new venue, and then utilisation of the car parking bays.
Councillor Bowman, you've got a question for staff. Just before you ask, I'll ask, are there any other councillors have a question for Mr Dawkins? Then I thank you for your attendance and your deputation answering questions.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Mr. Mayor, let's just continue on for what was just said in the deputation. The planning approval for the Guildford Hotel, was there a number put on there, a restriction? And if not, how you then determine the car parking then, if there was no restrictions?
Mr Russell, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no patron cap placed in the conditions of the approval of the Guildford Hotel. The maximum available space that could be utilised for parking, cognizant of the fact that you had part of that back here, 1,300 square metres was the footprint of the single-storey commercial development, was the accompaniment or second part or adjoining part of the Guildford Hotel redevelopment application. So the 42, when you had the commercial and you had the Guildford Hotel, 42 was what you were left with in terms of available functional parking. And that's where the condition came from. It sits there and you look at it and go, okay, so they've constructed the number required to meet the condition of the planning approval and no more, because it was anticipated, obviously, ultimately, that you would, and the applicant, when I say the applicant, the proprietors of the Guildford Hotel land have been very clear and insistent over the course of years that they plan to, at some point, implement the full approval and develop the commercial development to the rear. So that's where the 42 came from. It was the maximum available under the application.
Any other questions, councillors? Being no other questions, that takes us to item 6.3. Councillor questions in regard to any other items. Have you got any other questions, councillors, on any other items? Councillor Johnston first.
Yeah, question about the report on City of Swan water fountains 5.1, page 61. When I look down the list, I noticed that I can only see 2 new water fountains in the priority list for the Midland Guildford ward. And while I don't want to sound too parochial about it, I just have to ask the question, why only 2 new water fountains in the Midland Guildford ward?
Mr Southern, do you have an answer or do you want to take it on notice?
I'll take it on notice, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And my only comment, Councillor Johnston, this came out of a request at an electors meeting when the elector asked for water fountains for humans and dogs in every park in Bennett Springs. And you'll note that not one park in Bennett Springs is on the top list. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Bowman.
Continuing on from the fountains or the talk about it's for humans and for dogs. Are all these parks actually parks that dogs can go to?
Mr Bishop, I think that'd be your area. If you're not sure, you can take it on notice and give us an answer for next Wednesday.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd have to go through the list and actually cross-reference, so I'll take it on notice.
And Mr Mayor, my next question is, and I did sort of get some information back when I put some responses in, for those priorities 4, 5 and 6s, are there any concerns with them not being used enough and stagnated water?
Mr Southern?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the dog bowls can be washed out, so there wouldn't be a concern for stagnant water for those that need to use them.
I was referring to humans then. If you don't use a water fountain that often, you need to flush it more often.
Yeah, through you again, Mr Mayor, there's no concerns from staff in regards to that.
And my next question is, the recommendation says let's approve all of them. Is there anything stopping us only putting in priorities 1 to 4? Then once we've done that and once we see how they're used, then considering 5 and 6s?
Oh, as you'll be aware, Councillor Bowman, any councillor can put any alternative motion in before next week, and I'd ask you to work with the staff and get it in early.
Well, actually, that wasn't my question, Mr Mayor. My question was, would there be any impact or any issue from a staffing point of view that we don't say yay to all of them now, we only say yay to 1 to 4, we do those, and then once we see them and how well utilised or not utilised they are, we then can go, do we do 5 and 6s? That was the question.
Well, I don't see any issue with that. Mr Southern's indicating there's no issue because they're going to be done on an annual basis over a number of years. So I look forward to an alternative on that.
So my next question is on 7.1.
Yes.
And so I understand that the department has been saying don't have meetings until the earliest on Tuesday, the 24th of October. My understanding is that if it is a basic count, if you have a count that has more than 5 mayoral candidates, and it's probably a good reason to expect that we will have more than 5, that the returning officers are being told that they will not have a outcome for the mayoral election to at least probably Sunday evening. Then the councillor ones will be Monday, potentially Tuesday. Is that the advice that staff have been getting, or has it just been general advice based on other local governments who haven't got many nominations?
Ms Hodgkin?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Councillor Bowman, the advice that we've based this date on is from our returning officer.
And then I've got questions on the confidential.
Thank
so
you.
I don't know how you want to handle that.
Well, I'll ask, are there any more general questions before we move behind closed doors? Being no further questions, then I'll need a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Parry, seconded Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, then we'll be moving behind closed doors. I thank you, Jackie, for your attendance tonight. And I'll ask, are there any other questions on any other items, councillors? Being no other questions, then I thank you for your attendance. I hope to see you all next week and close the meeting at 6:57.